Hey everyone. Um, Sorry about that. Hey everyone. Sorry about that. My name is Raghav Ringshia, and I'm one of the Florida House interns this summer. We have another intern joining us today, Emma Bernstein, and we're pleased to welcome you to the fifth seminar of the Meet an Inventor series. Here at Florida House, the only embassy in DC, we work to connect, celebrate, and champion Florida to the world. We operate as a nonprofit organization providing educational, cultural, economic, and social resources to connect Floridians with Washington. In doing so, we are proud to host the Meet an Inventor series in partnership with the Museum of Creativity and Invention, as well as Florida Inventors Hall of Fame to bring Florida inventors into the spotlight. Today, we have a very special guest speaker, Roberta Goode. A highly successful entrepreneur, inventor, and biomedical engineer, Roberta Goode's medical device inventions have transformed minimally invasive cardiac surgical and diagnostic procedures around the world. Her pioneering designs help surgeons access cardiac systems to repair valves or insert stents or catheters while also protecting the health of patients by reducing blood loss. More than 1 million catheterizations are performed every day in the United States. Ms. Goods is the founder of and president of Altrec in Coral Springs, Florida, and was the founder of Good Compliance International and a consultancy firm. She holds adjunct faculty appointments at the University of Miami College of Engineering and George Washington University School of Medicine and Health Sciences. A Florida native, Ms. Good is a double graduate of the University of Miami and holds 4 patents. In 2011, Ms. Good earned 2 certificates in management and leadership from MIT Sloan School of Management. She has been an ASQ certified quality engineer for over 25 years, and she's a 2021 inductee into the Florida Inventors Hall of Fame. We are so honored to have you with us today. Before we start the conversation with Ms. Good, I'd like to recognize Jamie Spurrier, the program manager from the Florida Inventors Hall of Fame. Jamie, if you'd like to say a few words about the Hall of Fame, that would be great.
Thank you, Raghav. Good afternoon, everyone. I first want to thank the Florida House and the Cade Museum for Creativity and Invention for this wonderful opportunity. We couldn't be more excited about our speaker today, Florida Inventors Hall of Fame inductee Roberta Goode. So good to see you again. And what a perfect collaboration of innovation for the state of Florida. And that's really the heart of the Florida Inventors Hall of Fame, to celebrate the spirit of innovation in Florida and to serve as a hub for the innovation ecosystem. Florida is a powerhouse of innovation in the United States. We bring together top-tier research universities and institutions, NASA Kennedy Space Center, and a prolific entrepreneur network, as well as disruptive collaborations between industry, academia, and government. As a result, Florida consistently ranks in the top 10 states for most patents granted and the top 3 states for most trademarks registered. The Florida Inventors Hall of Fame is a statewide initiative dedicated to recognizing and celebrating Florida's vibrant innovation ecosystem and the remarkable inventors from our state, all of whom have advanced the quality of life for Americans. It is our mission to encourage individuals of all ages and backgrounds to strive toward the betterment of society through continuous groundbreaking innovation.
You have downloaded on your
It happens. We are driven to support a culture of creativity, one that fuels innovation, drives economic growth, and encourages investment in Florida. The Florida Inventors Hall of Fame is located at the University of South Florida campus, where our museum exhibits inventions and innovations from our inductees. To date, we have 58 remarkable inventors, including our esteemed guest today. They collectively hold over 4,000 patents. Each year, we hold an annual ceremony in Tampa where we celebrate and recognize the year's inductees. We invite you to come visit us anytime or join us at the ceremony in Tampa on November 5th in 2021. Thank you again. Raghav, back to you.
Thank you, Jamie. At Florida House, we have the pleasure of hosting the Cade Museums in a State of Innovation, an exhibition about a state's incredible and widespread contribution to innovation. The exhibit even highlights some of our speakers who will hear from in the series of talks. This exhibition and the series itself would not have been possible without guidance from Cade Museum of Creativity and Invention. I'd like to welcome Ellie Thorne, Director of Product Development, to say a few words about this project.
Thank you for the introduction, Rahav. I'm delighted to be here today speaking on behalf of the Cade Museum for Creativity and Invention. The Cade Museum's mission is to transform communities through inspiring and equipping future inventors, entrepreneurs, and visionaries. We're excited to have our In a State of Innovation exhibit on display at the Florida House and to be partnering with the Florida House and Inventors Hall of Fame on this speaker series. The Cade Museum was named for Dr. James Robert Cade, the lead inventor of Gatorade. Dr. Cade was a scientist, doctor, musician, poet, and an inventor. The story of the invention of Gatorade and Dr. Cade's inventive mindset is at the heart of everything we do at the museum. Through our programs, exhibits, and events, we aim to spark wonder in the next generation and to equip them with the tools they need to solve tomorrow's problems and to one day change the world. If you ever visit the Cade, prepare to roll up your sleeves, ask questions, and be an inventor. All our programming and exhibits are hands-on and facilitated by knowledgeable and energetic education team. If Gainesville, Florida is too far away for you, you can always engage with us virtually as well by listening to our podcast, Radio Cade. Radio Cade provides a glimpse into the brilliant minds and hearts of world-class inventors, entrepreneurs, and visionaries. The Cade Museum also plays an important part in Florida's invention ecosystem. Since 2010, the Cade Prize has celebrated innovation by identifying, recognizing, and celebrating Florida-based inventors and entrepreneurs who demonstrate a creative approach to addressing problems in their field of expertise. As one of the largest cash prize competitions for innovation in Florida, the Cade Prize has drawn hundreds of creative thinkers from diverse sectors who enter cutting-edge inventions with real market potential. In 2021, the Cade Prize will award $50,000 in seed capital prizes. We're actually currently accepting applications for the Cade Prize right now. Please visit our website to learn more. Now, to begin the conversation, I'd like to introduce our moderator, Stephanie Bales, President and Executive Director for the Cade Museum. Stephanie joined the Cade as its Executive Director in 2017. She spent almost 20 years leading teams and initiatives in domestic and international private sector startup, corporate, and nonprofit environments. I've worked with Stephanie for almost 4 years. She is an amazing leader, and the museum would not be what it is today without her. I'm really looking forward to this conversation today, and we'll pass the mic over to Stephanie. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellie. That was really sweet of you. Now let's get to our guest of honor, Ms. Roberta Goode. I have been looking forward to meeting you, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to get to know you a little bit better, and for you sharing your story with us today. You are both an inventor and an entrepreneur. You're a professor, a mentor, a family woman, and you have had tremendous impact on the lives of so many with your inventions transforming cardiac catheterization and other cardiological procedures. When you were a teenager, was this your dream? What interested you most then that led to where you are now? And what was your particular motivation?
Wow. Thank you, Stephanie. What a thoughtful question. I remember when I was 4 years old asking for, as a birthday gift, I remember what I asked my parents for. I asked for a doctor kit, one of those plastic, did anybody have those back in the day? Those little plastic kits, and there was like a plastic stethoscope and a thermometer. That's what I wanted. So since I was 4, I wanted to be a physician, or at least engaged in the medical life sciences community in some way. In fact, when I was 18, the only gift I requested was the color atlas of human anatomy, so that I could start to memorize all the nerves and muscles. I know, it's sad. I guess I was a very cool teenager. But I was passionate about what I wanted, and I was lucky to know what I wanted from a young age. So my dream really, Stephanie, was at that time was to be a physician. But just like biomedical engineering, which is where I landed, I think that the motivations and the topics that most interested me are the same. It was, that curiosity and the process of technical problem solving, whether it's a diagnostic problem solving as a clinician or technical problem solving and creating a solution that doesn't exist currently in the medical device realm. It's really the same kinds of things. And I think what motivated me beyond that to put in the kind of effort that I had to put in to fund my education myself and to be the first person in my family to attend college, and to find a way to make this come true, was the fact that I was raised without a lot of the comforts that, you know, many of us are so fortunate to have in this country at this time now. I remember being a little girl, I used to count the number of cans of peas that we had on grocery shopping day, even though we purchased the groceries with what used to be called food stamps. It's called something different now. If we had a certain minimum number of cans of peas, and I could still see those silver labels in my mind today, then I felt secure that we wouldn't be hungry, at least until the next time we went to the market. And that really motivated me too.
You know, it's interesting. I hear you talk about like these personal characteristics of curiosity and inquisitiveness and passion about a subject matter that you just naturally kind of gravitated toward. And then you have these environmental factors, like economic factors, that certainly motivated you in some ways. At the Cade Museum, we're always trying to understand really what leads people to be the problem solvers, to be the inventors. And would you say that it was more heavily who you were as a person, or really the environment that you grew up with that motivated you to push forward and succeed? Or was it just both together?
Wow. I think, you know, and I'm going to answer this question from the point of view of not just a person having this experience, but also as a parent. Now that I look back on my own children and also the students and young people that I'm privileged to work with, when I say, I think that my discomfort, my lack of ease, if you will, probably had, I have chills just now as I'm saying this, because it just resonates so deeply within me. I think that probably was the single most prominent reason why I did the things I did. Beyond that, my dad was a very creative person. He gave me the accidental gift of not being a very reliable provider for our family, but he was an inventor. He created all kinds of things, from air conditioning system that ran on the runoff of a tilapia pond that he had, to all kinds of crazy ways to look at the stars through a handmade cardboard telescope. He loved science. He used to tell me that when I was little, instead of reading to me at night about, the three bears, he would read the encyclopedia to me. So I have to say that in a kind of a backwards way, he exemplified that the curiosity and creativity and problem solving. And then when our family, my parents split up when I was 11, then I got an opportunity to see my mom, who was the single most strong, amazing woman I've ever met, how she solved problems, economic and every other kind of problem, and did it, on her own. And it's having a strong woman as my mentor, that was also huge. So I think it was really those elements.
Yeah. It sounds it sounds almost like a perfect combination of things that occurred. Phoebe, our founder, often talks about being able to sit at the table with her dad, who was an inventor, And he kind of taught her through those invention processes how to be a little bit more curious and to explore ideas and such. You mentioned that you had always wanted to be a physician, and then you ended up, though, in biomedical engineering. Was there any particular pivotal moment that forced you to make that transition? And you mentioned your mom as a mentor, but were there any other mentors that you had along the way?
Wow. Yes to both. So I found myself at the University of Miami majoring in biology at the time, and thinking that I was going to go to medical school and fulfill my 4-year-old's dream. Although I don't think they would have let me use that plastic doctor kit. So, at some point, I realized that I could either help one patient at a time in a clinical setting, or if I designed the medical devices that physicians use to diagnose and treat disease, then at least theoretically I could help hundreds of patients or thousands of patients, simultaneously every day, even on the weekends, even if I'm not physically present. And that was so exciting to me. I had never even known that biomedical engineering was a professional, not only degree, but career. And I discovered it because to fund my bachelor's degree, my undergrad degree at UM, I was working as a work study in the IT department, and solving technical problems at the help desk. People would call, my printer doesn't work, or my computer won't turn on, and I found I had a knack for that. And while I was there, I was exposed to the College of Engineering and to all these technical ideas and to this degree. And I remember the day that a colleague, a programmer analyst, Cindy Habermel, so I have to call her name out as a possible mentor here. My life really changed when she said, hey, you're really good at this, computer problem thing. You can solve all these hardware and software problems. And I know you love medicine. What about biomedical engineering? And that was that. And I would say of the many, many mentors along the way, there was one other person, if I may, who inspired me in the biggest way. And this was when many years later, maybe 15 years later, when I started my own business, Dr. Leonard Pinchuk.
His name is familiar. I wonder why. So who is he?
Wow. Well, Lewis Tamaris at the University of Miami put on an entrepreneurship forum regularly for students and faculty to attend to hear from entrepreneurs, similar to what you're doing now. And he spoke there, and I was in the audience that night as an engineering student. This is after I had to do another bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering in order to apply to grad school in biomedical. So that was a long route. That was a long, because biology doesn't really apply. And I was attending this, and he is one of the most prolific inventors I've ever met. One of the things your listeners might recognize, if anyone's familiar with drug-eluting stents used in the cardiac realm. When he worked for Cordis Corporation, which is now Johnson & Johnson, he developed, I believe it was the first drug-eluting stent ever. And I remember he described he had some business challenges around, that difficult intersection of inventor, but working for a company that really owned the invention. And I'll never forget the story. He flew up to Natick, Massachusetts, which is the headquarters of Cordis's biggest competitor at the time, Boston Scientific Corporation, walked into the boardroom and just said, hey, I'm the inventor of your competitor's drug-eluting stent. I know how to do it better now. I know how to get around the prior art because I am the inventor, and I'll do it for you if you allow me to do the other things that I want to do too. And they said yes. And so everybody, I think, in the world almost who's had a drug-eluting stent implanted is from him. But the biggest thing I learned, and that was my takeaway, was that we cannot be, we can be afraid, but we have to take risk anyway. No matter, courage isn't lack of fear. It's feeling the fear and doing it anyway. That's what he taught me. But they have to be calculated, smart risks. Otherwise, if you just go out without a plan, I think that's why most businesses fail in the first year.
Yeah, that is, most people who are listening probably, don't fully understand the difference between inventing something when you're on your own or it's your own lab versus when you're working in a corporate environment, what that invention process looks like, and really who owns the idea, if you will. Can you tell folks a little bit more about what it's like to work in a corporate environment as an inventor? And then maybe also touch upon what it was like in the 80s, 90s, late 80s, early 90s to work in that type of environment as a woman and as an engineer.
Wow. Yes. Okay. So at the time that and after I finished my graduate, I did that, secondary, the post-baccalaureate work in mechanical engineering, then did a graduate degree in biomedical engineering. I headed out to, corporate America. Having an engineering degree and being an engineer are entirely different things. I remember I was kind of naive. I had my fluid mechanics book. Literally, this is laughable, and everyone feel free to laugh. It's okay. Tucked under my arm on my first day of work, like I was a kid going to school with a backpack in third grade.
With your fluid mechanics book.
Yes. I mean, to me, that had like the best, most useful formulas. I had studied in grad school. I'd studied how to apply all fluid mechanics to non-Newtonian flow because, plate blood cells, so it's not exactly Newtonian. And I was just ready to take on the world. And I literally thought I would be I knew I was taking a product development, research and development position. I thought I might be solving equations, and that I can't remember any time I ever solved an equation. What of course I brought to the table with my engineering background was a discipline for critical thinking and analysis, logical systematic analysis, right? And that was really, all of those things trained my brain to think that way with day-to-day, with real world problems. So,
well, combined with your curiosity too, though, right? I mean, this like analytical approach, this training that you had combined with this nature of who you are, right?
Yes. And honestly, working in the corporate environment as an engineer / inventor, it required some really long hours. I mean, really long hours, and at times. And I think the thing that kept me going then was just, that sort of that altruistic element where I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to help someone. And that's what I wanted to do as a physician. And well, it kept me going even when, maybe the thought of a bonus or performance review or something wouldn't have been enough, but it was enough to think of I always thought of my grandmother, Anna Fratto. She was an immigrant and came from Sicily. And I always thought of her when I pictured any patient. That gave patients a face that was personal for me. And that's what kept me going. I'm sorry, I haven't answered your question yet.
Well, no, I think you have to a certain degree because, again, working in a corporate environment, my understanding of it is certainly as an inventor is that you're almost given the problem to solve, or you're led toward a problem to solve. It's not like you are having your own self-directed aha moment per se, right? And so you're explaining what kept you moving through that environment, which is very different than working for oneself, I guess. Can you share with us the question or the idea that led to your first patented invention?
Sure.
What were you trying to solve?
Well, to your very insightful point, Stephanie, it was a problem that was presented to me by my employer. So that in fact was the case. And and I really have to give props to my employer, Cordis Corporation, and to the boss I had at the time, Larry Weinstein, who if they hadn't presented me not only with the problem to solve, the question, but also with the financial means to do it, I would not have those patents. So, it's it can be a very daunting and expensive process, a long process to not only file a patent application, but to also defend that application when and if prior art seems to encroach on, your one's unique invention. And my employer, they had the attorneys that did so and made it happen. And so I really must give them, credit. And that was one of the best, smartest things I think I ended up doing, was working in a corporate environment to learn not only best practices, but also to get established. And I had to ask for it. I remembered my first day on the job asking Larry Weinstein if I could possibly get a patent. And of course, I was so young and naive. I was like maybe 23. And he said, well, not only can you, but you must. And so the question was how my patents are in the catheter sheath introducer, specifically the hemostasis valve. There's a valve, a silicone valve, that allows for a very delicate balance of two attributes that are so opposite. So as a physician, it's really an interventional radiologist or interventional cardiologist places a sheath introducer into a patient's body. Usually it's the superficial femoral artery near the groin. This becomes then a tunnel or a conduit into which they can place stents, PTCA balloon catheters, or any other number of diagnostic or treatment modalities. In order for the physician to feel her way through that valve and the arterial system into the diseased organ or issue, there must feel frictionless. It must feel like they're pushing the device through air. Mm-hmm. And yet the patient would bleed out in a short period of time if that major artery into which we have access So to find a way to completely, to the extent possible, to restrict blood flow while simultaneously having that aperture as wide open and frictionless as possible, those are completely counterintuitive. That was the problem that I needed to solve. It had actually been solved. I think each of us, most of us, myself at least, stand on the shoulders of those who came before. I don't think I could have accomplished that without the background of the engineers and inventors who came before me. But by looking at what they had tried, what worked, what didn't work, and then trying a number of things exhaustively myself that worked and didn't work, eventually I hit on a combination that seemed to do the trick.
Wow. You were just, you are touching upon so many aspects of the inventor story and inventor process that we touch upon at the museum. Just, not only being curious and having these individual characteristics, but also understanding what has come before and using that as a tool. The inventions themselves as a tool to build upon, but also the inventors and their experiences to build off of. I want to ask you one more question before we go to questions for the audience, from the audience. You went into this environment, corporate environment, as an inventor, and then you decided to leave to become an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Very different skill sets. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and how you found the environments or the work challenges to be different? Which do you prefer? Anything you would like to share with the group?
Wow. Okay. I'm going to level with you. So when I was coming up through the corporate environment I started in 1989 and, throughout the 90s and the early 2000s, I was usually the only woman at the table. I was the only woman in the research and development department, except for the administrative assistant. And everybody else who was an engineer was, a male. And that was true almost all the time. Not every time, but almost all the time. And if I wasn't the only one, then maybe there were 2 of us or 3 of us at most. And I guess I wanted to have it all. You know, I had this amazing career and opportunities and meaning, you know, every day that I went to work. Like, I couldn't wait to go to work. I loved Sunday night because it meant Monday morning was coming. I know that's so unusual, but that's like that's the best part of doing something you really love, right? And so I eventually wanted to start a family. I thought, I've got all of this and I'd like to have a family and explore the other parts of being a human being that I had put on the back burner really my whole life. And at that time, there weren't a lot of options for women. I mean, as the only woman in my research and development department, you know, I worked hard not to be different, even though everyone saw me as different. And there was quite a bit of, I felt that there was a lot of discrimination. Didn't hold me back in any way, but it was like if I made a mistake publicly, it seemed that was remembered. So ultimately, I decided that after I had spent enough years, I spent about 12 years or so strategically moving into different companies in the medical device manufacturing realm and into different positions. Research and development engineer, manufacturing engineer, quality engineer. I did some regulatory affairs work. And then I had a mentor who allowed me to sit in on business development calls. And thank you to Mel Rothberg for that. I thought I had enough of a broad reach that I could begin my own gig and have the flexibility to raise my own children. I mean, there's so many right paths. There's really no wrong path. And there's so many ways to fulfill this goal. But for me, I wanted the flexibility to be with them, but also to do the work that was so meaningful to me. I wanted it all. And so that's why that's when I decided to start the business. But it was extremely important to prepare well, to build my clientele before I quit my job, to kind of moonlight, if you will, as long as that's acceptable professional behavior for the company that you're working with. And in my case, it was because I was doing something that didn't compete with what my employer did. To take a public speaking class because I realized that people would be buying me before they were buying my services or products. If anyone doesn't know what I mean by that, you know, we can talk about that more later. But basically, it seems there's a lot of research about the ability to sell oneself and to engender confidence in one's potential clients that is directly correlated with success. You know, everything to save even to the practical minutia, like saving 6 months worth of salary, eliminating all credit card debt and other debt that I could eliminate. All of these things that made it less scary to jump into that entrepreneurial world from a comfortable job with benefits and salary. And also simultaneously made it more likely that I would succeed. And so those are some of the key differences. And I loved it. I was never happier than when I was building my business.
I really love your story, and I wish I could go on asking you questions for another half hour or more. But I have to hand it over to Raghav and Emma to ask the questions that are out on the chat box, I guess. But Roberta, I hope I get the opportunity to have lunch with you someday and just take more of your great ideas. You truly are an inspiration and a wealth of knowledge and advice. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, what an honor, Stephanie. Such an honor to be asked for my opinion. And thank you. I look forward to that lunch.
Yeah. Okay. Have a great day. And Raghav, Emma?
Hi, thanks so much for speaking today. It was so awesome hearing about your experiences. So one question in the chat says, is there any advice you would give to an engineering students who are looking to join corporate America?
Wow. Yes. I think there are 100 things I could say, but the best, most important thing, build your network. It turns out that one's network is so important. So important. You know that old saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Well, that's a little crass. I think it's both. But I think sometimes we underestimate, once we get, getting the job, often the best jobs aren't posted, through the regular HR system. Often it's because, you took the time to go to let's say a meet and greet, a networking session, and to shake the hand of the speaker who was the director of product development somewhere or something like that. And then you can build on that relationship if you follow up and, remind them of who you are and what you liked about what they said, and so on. But even after you've gotten the job that you wanted in corporate America, so important to continue to build that network, not only within the company with people that can be advocates for you at a high level, but also outside of the company, because you never know how you might be able to bring companies together or people together for solutions. It's not just about getting your own needs met, although that can be true too, but sometimes you can make a connection that can help meet the needs of patients and of other vulnerable populations. And if you have to make a living doing something, why not make it doing something that really makes the world better, that you love, meaningful, right?
It's a really good answer. And we have another question in the chat. It says, can you talk a bit about your work championing young innovators, especially as it relates to diversity, equality, and inclusion?
Yes, I love to talk about that. Maybe it's because I experienced a lot of gender bias, being a woman, and what, especially back then, was really a man's world. Maybe it's because I grew up poor and I was embarrassed when my mom opened her wallet in the grocery store, and instead of pulling out green paper, dollars, bills, she pulled out food stamp coupons. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but when I started teaching and having students and friends with kids who were of the age to start thinking about college, I felt this compassionate pull towards especially young people who had a hard life. And it just, because I had a tough life in the beginning, I mean, better than so many. And I'm so fortunate I was born in this country and all these other amazing things that happened to me. But having said that, it was a challenge within my world anyway. And I just felt this sort of innate understanding and compassion for them. And that extended to, currently I'm working with probably 8 different mentees, one of whom is part of the LGBTQ plus, community and has struggled and is probably one of the most creative minds I've ever met. Young people who are underrepresented from every country, every race and creed and religion, especially the ones who have this grit. Do you know what I mean? It seems that people who've had a harder time, it seems that they are also very often those who have this persistence, this grit, this fire, and it's so rewarding to work with them. And so I do. And Jamie Spurrier and the good people at Florida Inventors Hall of Fame have been so supportive of my work in this area and have graciously, allowed me to share some of what they're doing with my mentees. And well, it means the world to me to be able to share some of what I've learned with deserving people.
Thank you for that. I have a question personally for you. I was reading your bio and I noticed that one of your ventures was about FDA approval process for people who are struggling with that. I was wondering, what are your thoughts on universities teaching the process as a class so young innovators and engineers know that off the bat?
Well, that is a really good question, Raghav. I actually teach a class like that at the University of Miami and the College of Engineering in our biomedical engineering department. The chairman of the department 22 years ago asked me if I would teach that, and so I teach a course in. It's more than just the FDA approval process. It's overall product commercialization, regulatory affairs, worldwide, and how to bring a product to that point. But I think that is such a needed and lacking topic. And I know the University of Miami isn't the only university to have realized that. Universities all over the country have started to specialize, whether it's FDA/world global regulatory approval path, or even packaging engineering is now a graduate degree at many schools. Just this, the time is now, like biotech and just technical problem solving, even outside of biotech, has become, maybe hasn't become, but has always been kind of the lifeblood of our success as a country and as a people. And I think more and more, as hospitality industry has struggled in our current times, our recent times, I think, the patents and the innovation that the United States brings has remained, or perhaps has stepped even more into the spotlight than it ever was. And so universities are starting to really respond in kind.
Yeah, I really think so too. I know a lot of my engineering friends who have trouble with the FDA approval process, the patent process. So I think a class like that at bigger universities, more and more universities would be really helpful. I'll hand it over to Emma now.
Well, it looks like we have one more question. So Victoria says, I think most people think of inventors working alone or on their own. What is it like to be an inventor within a company?
Well, it's kind of a dichotomy. So on the one hand, you have all of the resources of this corporation to help you. I talked about the expense and the expense and just the effort to defend a patent application. Those would have been outside of my my purview, my reach at age 23 or 24, were it not for my employer. On the other hand, sometimes there are restrictions on the creative process, because clearly you're looking to make a profit for the stockholders if it's a publicly traded company, or there's always somebody who's higher up than we are as engineers, who has needs that need to be met. And so my advice and my preference personally was to start in a corporation. I usually don't advise students of mine anyway to just go right into their own business, because I think, and though that can work, and if you have an amazing idea and you're a particular kind of person, go for it. But in my experience personally and professionally, just living on this planet for a while, I think that the best approach is to learn best practices in an organization where all of this has already been tried, failed, and perfected. The FDA approval process, how to verify and validate a design, both clinically and technically, how to commercialize, how to sell, what about the contracts, the suppliers, all of those nuances can be learned while you're contributing to that organization. And then when you're ready, start your own, free yourself from the political and fiduciary or financial constraints that you have to have, and just sort of make your own vision happen.
Thank you so much for answering all of the audience's questions. And thank you so much for participating today. And thank you, Stephanie, for being our moderator. I found it really inspirational, Ms. Goode, when you were talking about your experiences as a woman, both in engineering and corporate world. Also, the importance of having curiosity in mentors is definitely something that I will take with me. It's extraordinary to learn about the massive impact your inventions have had on so many people's lives. So thank you again. And thank you to our audience members for joining us today. Next Tuesday is going to be our last Meet an Inventors program. So we thank you for joining and making sure you invite your friends to next week's conversation. Our speaker is going to be Dr. Yogi Goswami, who's a distinguished university professor and director of Clean Energy Research Center at the University of South Florida, and the co-founder of Molecule, which is a groundbreaking technology used to destroy indoor air pollution. So thank you again to our partners and to Ms. Goode, and we hope you had a great time here at Florida House on Capitol Hill, where you are always welcome.